Hello, I'm streaming. Good afternoon. My computer's making a lot of noise. My computer's making a lot of noise. I think I need to restart it, but I'll do that later. I'll let it. I'll let it go. I don't know if you can hear that if the microphone's picking it up. It probably is. It just kind of roars to life every now and then for just a second or two, then it goes back off. So. I don't know why it does that. Okay, I'm gonna close the door. I'll be right back. It usually just does that, like when the stream starts, and then it settles down for the rest of it. So hopefully it's okay. So this is as you see from the whiteboard, week 3, day 3, and so we're continuing to talk about the object lesson project. I can show you some things about that if you'd like, or not, and I can also talk about what I have in the notes for today, some things for you to look at and check out. So I'll talk about those things shortly. As you can see here, I'm also interested in you telling me what you're working on. So either in the Slack chat or in the Twitch chat, whichever is easier for you, let me know what object you've chosen. I'm curious to see what you all are working on. Also, of course, if I do have any suggestions or feedback, or maybe want to recommend a different device, then I would like an opportunity to do that before you get too far into the work of researching it. So again, please let me know. But yeah, I will let people get online before I get into anything really serious content-wise. Yeah, not much else to say. Yeah, I've been commenting on the news, I guess, the past couple of streams. Nothing that much to add except reaching out to, well, it's just there's a lot to pay attention to and keep an eye on in Fredericksburg. The Freelance Star has been reporting. Apparently, there was, I think it's losing track of time, but I think it was yesterday. Now there was a pretty large march, and it ended, and then things got rough after it ended. And so I think one thing I'm finding, okay, so Becca just chimed in, thanks. One thing I'm hearing anyway is that the police yesterday were very much like, we're in this together, we hear you, we're here to listen. And then later in the evening, things got more heated and lots of protesters got arrested. So there's a feeling of anger about that still. But anyway, so Sterling is, oh yeah, so Goodwill is probably still closed. So remember, and this is to Becca, but anyone else, if you aren't planning to take apart a device, like if you don't plan to destroy it, then you don't necessarily need to find something older. Something older is a bit easier to take apart if you're going to take it apart. But if you do the lived history or the afterlife version of this assignment, any device that you are using right now can work. Like, so the one that you're watching, that you're using right now to watch the stream, or your smartphone if you have one, whatever you have, anything like that could be a valid object to choose. So that's the recommendation. Anything else too, like can even be kind of trivial, like an alarm clock, maybe, or an e-reader, or I don't know if you have any children in your area wherever you live with, but kids have my kids anyway have lots of random little electronic toys, like a robot dog, something like that. Those can be interesting. We have a couple of Leapfrog, I forget what they're called, but they're named Violet and Scout, and they're like bears, and they're dogs, I think. Yeah, I think they're dogs. And you can connect them with a USB port, and you can download content onto them. It's kind of advanced for a little dog toy, but whatever, things like that can be great too. So it doesn't have to be a really significant object. If it's something that you can work with, then that's really all you need. Yeah, I'm not seeing if any Goodwills are open yet. Oh, it's hot today. One of those days where it's been, well, the sun's out now, but it was hot and cloudy earlier, which is always a drag, but it's looking better. So yeah, Becca, if you think of something, feel free to run it by me, but hopefully that helps clear up some of your options. I mean, you do have lots of options, basically. And again, the main thing is you don't have to, it doesn't have to be something that you plan on destroying. Although if you do, that's fun. So I can recommend that approach if that's available to you. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to keep this stream a little shorter, I think, because I don't know, or I don't have a lot kind of prepared in advance to talk through or work through here. So I will just kind of remind you of a few things and then talk about the plan for today. I'm planning to use, like after this, to record some videos giving you all some feedback on the web literacy articles, and I've gotten about halfway through those in terms of commenting and copy editing. So there's still some more of that work to do that I want to try to do this afternoon. I just feel like that might be a better use of my time today instead of working through the content here, because I think the content is kind of set up to be something you can work through on your own, and hopefully that's the case. So let me switch over to that and kind of talk through a couple things in here. So here we are, week 3, day 3, and the topic under consideration today is the third phase of the life cycle of a device. Well, I guess it's the fourth phase if you're looking at how the phases were organized in Phone Story. We're basically skipping the retail phase. There's a little less interesting things to say about that, but it's also something that's unique, and so to each device and each individual, so there's a little bit less to say about it. Yeah, I mean, we do have some things to learn about e-waste, and I think that's something worth learning about. So here's what I'd like for you to do as you think about your content today. This is the global e-waste trade. And if you remember, when we looked at Phone Story, I was interested in how game mechanics helped tell the story. When we looked at Your Phone Was Made by Slaves, I was interested in how rhetoric and essayistic style of writing, how that got its ideas across, how that got the author's ideas across. In looking at the audio from the podcast, I was interested in how audio makes an argument or helps create a compelling document that we can engage with. Similarly, I'm interested in how film, audiovisual media, can make different kinds of rhetorical appeals or different ways to convince you of something. And I thought it'd be interesting to compare two different documents, two different artifacts, two different videos. So I'd like you to watch both of these. And as usual, let me just make sure I do have the e-waste channel. I'm going to go ahead and invite everybody to join the e-waste channel in Slack. And this will just give you another place so you can record your thoughts about these things, but you are always welcome to write things on your blog if you prefer. Sometimes that's better. So these are the two videos I'd like for you to compare and contrast. The first one is, let me see, I'm going to open it up here. Actually, I should make sure my audio does not pick those up, or if it does, that I can intervene if I need to. So this first one is, I could play it, but I think I won't. This is a short video. It was 8 minutes long. This is a segment on that was aired as part of PBS NewsHour. I think it was also aired on Frontline, and this is pretty short, really, but it's a news report. It's a journalistic kind of report, and it reports on an investigation into the economy of e-waste and follows the researcher on his investigations and tells us some things about it. It also adds some context and looks at it attempts to look at multiple sides of the issue. In doing so, it reveals some pretty interesting things. So again, take a look at it, learn from it. And then I would also like you to look at this one. And this piece is very different. And what I think you'll find is that it nevertheless has a similar goal. It has a similar motivation to try to convince us as viewers to change how we feel about something and to learn more about it. But this takes a different approach. This is 20 minutes long, so I would call this more of a short film than a, I don't know, Ryan. But I can take a look at it. This is a short film that uses different rhetorical appeals or different ways to make you feel engaged in the material. So again, watch it, learn from it, and then talk about and respond to it. I saw your note there, Ryan. Let me see if I can change something here. Okay, so I've made a change on the stream settings. Tell me if it changes. Basically, I've had it not worry about latency, which means it will get more delayed between when I do something and when you see it, but it should hopefully come through more clearly by the time it gets to you. So maybe that changes it. If not, you might want to refresh your browser. That might help. If you're watching it in a browser, you might want to refresh that, and that might improve it. Sometimes that's the case for me with my audio. So let me know if that makes a difference. I'm not sure if it will or not, but hopefully it does. Anyway, so E-Wasteland. Okay, great. So E-Wasteland, a film by David Federle, and this is, again, a different approach. And so I want you to watch both and then compare and contrast. One interesting thing you might be on the lookout for in this second piece in video 2 here, E-Wasteland. If you remember from the audio that we listened to, or that you listened to, where Mike Daisy is confronted by Ira Glass to explain, why did you lie? There are a couple of really long, awkward pauses in that, and the length of those pauses, the longest I think is 13 seconds long, which doesn't sound like much, but in media that's a very long amount of silence. So maybe think about how silence or the lack of narration in E-Wasteland also helps carry its point across, and see if that comparison is interesting or reveals anything to you. It is, I think, a really compelling piece, and so when I say compelling, I mean that it's sort of shocking and disturbing, and also very human. And I think that's what's ultimately compelling about it, is that this isn't just like, here's this global problem, but here are these people, and here's a glimpse into their life. And it is interesting, and it is I think, fairly powerful in doing that. After you do that, the thing I would like for you to do, and please share this in your Discuss E-Waste channel, or maybe general chat or whatever, see what you can learn about recycling options for your objects. And your options will vary depending on where you are. So different counties, for example, manage their own recycling programs, at least in Virginia, and so they may have facilities for e-waste recycling. Other counties do not. I live in Stafford County, and Stafford County, as far as I know, does not, at least the last time I checked, they had the group is called the R Board, and last I checked, they do not accept electronics for recycling, and you're also not supposed to put them in the trash for the landfill because they can contain toxic material. So they have, I think they might have special days where they accept that, or they might have special situations where you can pay them a little bit more money and they will take those things, but in general they don't take it. So you have to find other options, and depending on your object, it may be challenging. Smartphones there's a pretty well established recycling workflow for those. Best Buy accepts those. I think there's like a kiosk in the mall that takes that kind of thing, in the mall in Fredericksburg at least. So I mean, there are ways to do that. If possible, find out, if you can, like what happens then. Like what does that kiosk at the mall do with the phones that you put in it? What does Best Buy do with their phones? Those are the kinds of things that we're interested in if you're going to be doing the afterlife version of this assignment. One thing you'll find, I think, is that if you have anything particularly large or heavy, like a TV, it's harder to recycle those. I believe Best Buy does take flat panel TVs, but they do not take CRT, like cathode ray tube TVs. Most recycling facilities that take those ask you to pay them to take them, so like $20 or $30 to take a TV off your hands. I will say, if you happen to have a CRT TV, like a big, I'm talking about big clunky ones, I would say hold on to it, because those are, if it works, those are not made anymore, and there are certain people who are interested in using them for different things. For example, to build arcade systems, and if they're not made anymore, you can't buy a new one. So there is a finite number of those out there. So if you have one, maybe hold on to it, especially if it's a larger one. And if it is a larger one, like let's say if you happen to have one that's like 36 inches or bigger, and you don't know what to do with it, let me know. I might have an idea for it. So let me know. I do have a closet full of them already, but I don't have. I could use more, I guess, or I could maybe take one or two more off, off your hands if you have one. Obviously not today, but eventually. Okay, so that's really it. I mean, just looking at these two and talking about them. And what I've linked to here is a description of rhetorical appeals, because I think that's, as you reflect on what these things do differently, I think you'll notice that they have different things that they appeal to, or different ways that they make you try to think differently. And see if you can tell the difference between those two in these. Like which kind of appeal is the PBS NewsHour, the sort of documentary that they do there. What kind of appeal is it making? And then also, what is eWasteland making? So is it an appeal to ethos, sometimes called an appeal to logic? Or is it appeal to pathos, which could be an appeal to emotion, or to sympathy, and so on, right? So these are, so actually this is logos, right? Ethos is more like authority, and then logos is more like logic. So basically, how do we navigate these things in terms of their rhetorical structures? Okay, so I think, again, that's pretty straightforward in terms of what to do with that. And these will, by the way, give you things that you can do that you can use in your timelines to help explain the significance of your work, especially if it's you're working on the afterlife version of the object lesson assignment. If you're not, it's still important to know about, because especially if you destroy something, like if you take apart your smartphone and then it doesn't work anymore, you have to decide what to do with that. And based on what you see here, you may decide that it's not appropriate to put it into a landfill. So what other options do you have? See what you can do. Okay, so I've got 7 viewers. I just heard from, so far, Becca with well, I don't know what device you've chosen, but I do see it looks like Ryan is watching at least. So I am, again, still interested in hearing what devices you're working on. If you've decided, you should really probably have decided by now, but if you have not, then you should do that soon. So let me know what you're working on, or if you've narrowed it down to 3 or 4 candidates. What are your 3 or 4 candidates? Otherwise, I don't have a whole lot else to say, actually. So yeah, sorry, I was looking at the coronavirus stuff. It does look like there's a new kind of emerging conspiracy theory about COVID-19. So that's great. But this is. Let's see, what was I going to look at? Oh yeah, timeline. I kind of went through timeline yesterday, but I'd be happy to look at any part of it again if you'd like me to clarify that. So, okay, great. Becca, use your phone if that's what you have. I think phones can be very good, especially for the lived history, because I think what you find when you think about all the significant moments in your phone's life, they are actually going to be significant moments in your life, or maybe trivial, but sometimes revisiting a trivial moment in your life can be a really interesting process, just as a writer. So maybe that's an idea. Great. Okay. So, an old modem. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So we got a modem and an iPhone. Yeah. So this is modems are interesting, especially if you're talking about like the old screechy modems. Those are relics of an earlier era in some ways. But even if it's a more modern cable modem, again, these are really crucial devices. If you take it apart, and if that's the plan you're going with, like the plan to figure out like where it was manufactured and how it was made, once you take it apart, you'll probably find a single circuit board. And so if you do get that single circuit board, I don't recommend trying to take apart the circuit board or pull things off of that. You don't need to, really. If it's one circuit board, you should be able to look at it and see different chips on it and then you can learn about those different chips and where they were manufactured. They were probably manufactured at different places, and that's what's interesting about this assignment. So, and so Samantha has her MP3 player. Yeah, that's great. It looks so 2000s it hurts. I love the idea of something being so 2000s because, like, to some of you all, perhaps that seems like ancient history, but like, that's not that long ago to me. It doesn't seem that way. But yeah, that does look very 2000s. I agree with your assessment of that. And you will probably find, if you do take it apart, like, again, I don't know which option you're going with, but if you do take it apart, there's probably not much inside it, but probably a single circuit board, probably a very small circuit board. You don't have to rip it apart to do that. Probably, my hunch is it probably just has one or two significant chips, like one memory chip maybe and one CPU type chip. So I don't know. It would be interesting to see if that if that picture is accurate. You may or may, I don't know if you have screws on that. It kind of looks like you might not. If it's molded plastic, you often will have to crack that to open it up. So be really careful if you do decide to do that. You can get a tool to crack that plastic. Yeah, there's like a rim where the molded plastic is stuck together, and it's usually glued too. You have to. There's a. I think the word is spudger, although that sounds like one of those made-up words. But it's like it's kind of like a bike tire remover, if you know what that is. But it's basically a plastic. Also, a guitar pick works pretty well for this if you happen to have that. You kind of get it in there. Yeah, spudger. That's how it's. I think that's how it's. I think I've heard that term. I don't know, but it's like you can get into that crack and then sort of twist, and it'll pop if you do it just right. But anytime there's plastic, there's a risk of it shattering and spraying plastic everywhere. But pretty rare, but it does happen. But yeah, I mean, be careful. But could be interesting to see in the inside. There's probably there probably is another chip actually for the display, or it could just be kind of like glued to the back of the display. But again, you don't. I don't know what you're planning. I don't know if you're planning to take it apart or not. If it's something that's well, Ryan, so you remember you have three options with this project. So you can choose the option of something that you're going to destroy and learn about the insides, or you can choose the option of leave it intact and learn about it now and speculate about it in the future. So there's three doors to choose from. And if you go through door number one, yeah, you are going to take it apart. But doors number 2 or 3, you probably don't have to. I mean, you can if you want, but it sounds like you don't want to. So that's fine. iPhones are going to be harder than other things. iPhones tend to be very well sealed and very resistant to tampering. So yeah, it may not be worth the effort anyway, to be honest. And Samsung's too, Galaxies. I mean, this one, my Galaxy is pretty tight. I mean, it's like it's an active Galaxy S7 active, so it's rugged, I guess. But there's no screws on it. It's camouflaged for some reason. But yeah, different options. So, interestingly, I don't know what you all are seeing, but it looks like my stream, like the playback I have from my stream, has frozen pretty much. But that's on a different computer, which that computer is both playing my live stream and also installing a bunch of things in the background. So perhaps it's just overwhelmed and hanging. But hopefully y'all can see me okay. Because I can show you a bit more timeline if you'd like, but if not, I mean, I think my experience with timeline is a lot of people learn it best through trial and error, and then when you do reach an error, it gives you a message. Like, it usually gives you an error message saying what it thinks you did wrong, and usually you can figure it out from that. But if not, then please reach out and I can hopefully help you. Also, the great thing about Timeline.js is that you can share your spreadsheet with me, so I can look at it myself and see if you've done something wrong or if there's an error. Yeah, pretty easy to do. Okay, well, like I said, kind of a shorter day. I'm kind of running out of things to say, so I'll probably wrap it up unless you all have questions, or if you do want me to show you anything in timeline. I'll just say I have the group, the articles up here. I'm going through and I'm making a lot of comments on them. Most of the comments, just to warn you, are things that I think need to be corrected or improved. I'm not doing a lot of like, yay, this is great comments, just to kind of make it an easier checklist to work through as you revise it. But I think a lot of it is really great. So I'm going to be recording videos and giving you more of that kind of hopefully encouraging feedback. But don't be alarmed. I mean, I know that seeing a lot of, I mean, it's green in Google Docs, but you know, getting a paper back with a lot of red marks can be stressful, even if they are good comments. I'm making that. I've certainly experienced. I've been on both ends of that. So I know what that's like. But I think the three that I've looked at in some detail so far are really good. They just need to be sharpened a bit mostly in terms of the writing, and there are also some opportunities for expansion. So if there's anyone in your group that hasn't contributed yet, there is still some work to be done on each of these. So I will be recording videos shortly to give you all that guidance. Certainly, I think they all need a little bit of. Every article needs a little bit of something, a little bit of work before I'm ready to import it into Manifold. So please take a look at that one. Yeah, group 3 I just started looking on yours, so I haven't got there yet, but a lot of detail here, so this is a bit to work through, but I like it. Okay, great. So I'm going to wrap things up then on the stream. Kind of short today, so I will be back tomorrow with one more this week. Actually, I can go ahead and tell you about tomorrow's basic idea. It is a little different. I don't know. I mean, this was more of an add-on thing, but this is not add-on, but a different way of thinking things through. Maybe I should just swap these days now that I'm thinking about it. But on day 4, the thing I'm interested in here is a little different, and this is maybe to give you something to think about if you're looking at door number 2 or option 2 for this project, where you're thinking about the lived history. And there's this academic field of study called media archaeology, where the people who work in this field, it's a humanities field, people who work in this try to understand how media becomes part of our life and how it gets changed. And the emphasis within media archaeology is usually on objects, technological or media objects. And so that is really the background for this whole project. That's something I've done some reading in and some writing in, and I thought it would be useful to look at this a little bit. This is a really interesting article, an essay actually from a book about early video game history, or in this case prehistory. And so this goes back into the Victorian time period to talk about media devices from back then. The author of this article is someone named Erkki Hutamo, who is a leading media archaeologist, and pay attention to what he's talking about in terms of how the technology that he's describing here, the media devices, have a domestic context, but that by saying it has a domestic context means that all of the systems and powers of structure that are part of a domestic environment, like a patriarchal organization, all of those things are embedded in the objects, or they're built into the assumptions that the designers of these objects made in terms of who would use these and how they would be presented. So that's really the work of media archaeology, is to situate media objects into that kind of context. And that's really kind of the next level work that you can appeal to or strive for if you do the lived history version of this project, where you're trying to understand your own devices in a similar context to what Hutamo talks about here. So I'll say some more about this tomorrow, but it's kind of it's an article, it's a scholarly article, so you have to read it, and I think the stuff it talks about is fascinating, so I think it's a pretty entertaining read. So check that out, and I will have some more thoughts about it tomorrow as well. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up, and as always, reach out if you have any questions. Be on the lookout for some feedback from me. I will probably share it in your Slack channels because it's feedback meant for a whole group, so I'll probably just put it there. Although I'll just see what I can do in terms of YouTube. I don't know if it would make sense to put those on YouTube or not. Okay, well, I'll figure something out. Anyway, have a good afternoon, and take a look at those. Remember to take a look at those 2 YouTube videos and either discuss in Slack or maybe write a blog post doing some comparing and contrasting in terms of their different styles and their different rhetorical appeals. Okay, see you later. Bye.